We look at the tools of clear thinking, reason, and logic, that you would give us your spirit to think well upon this subject matter, and to grow to be better and sharper tools in your hands to accomplish great things in your kingdom. We ask your mercies and the forgiveness of our sins, and all things we want to ascend for your glory. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Okay, so I think this chapter will now begin to give you a better sense and joy in the study of logic, that not just, we're going to still be learning some definitions, but this is really going to be the building blocks that we're going to be going from. So I think this will kind of turn to be perhaps more enjoyable than the first few lessons that may have been a bit of a challenge. So we'll start on page 57. We're looking at statements now. And I'll just go ahead and read, and we'll discuss as we go along. A statement is a particular kind of sentence that brings a message that can be said to be either true or false. Here is an example of a true statement. The Apostle Paul wrote the book of Galatians, but statements can also be false. Here is an example. The Apostle Paul wrote the book of Isaiah. In evaluating statements, we should be looking for their truth value. The first statement has a true truth value. The second statement is said to have a false truth value. If a sentence has no truth value, then it is not a statement at all. The following are not statements. Who wrote the book of 1 Timothy? Or, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. The first sentence is a question, and consequently has no truth value. It is neither true nor false, and therefore it is not a statement. The second sentence is a command, and it also has no truth value and is not a statement. There is another kind of sentence that requires a little more care. It has the form of a statement, but it is not a real statement. Again, the instrument used to determine this is whether the sentence has a truth value. For example, the round square sweetly kicked the green yesterday. This looks like a statement, but it cannot even be said to be false. It doesn't refer to anything. It is best described as nonsense. Another example of nonsense is this. This sentence is false. Before I read the definition of this, why is that a nonsense statement? It looks very much like a statement, doesn't it? Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's exactly it. He says it's a paradox. If it's true, if the sentence is true, then the reality that sentence is addressing, this sentence is false, it would make it a false sentence. But if it's a false statement, then this sentence would be true, the reality of that. Page 58. This sentence is false, right? If the sentence is a true statement, if it's a true statement, then the claim, this sentence is false, would be false. So if it's true, it would be false. And if it's a false sentence, this statement is false, is actually not true, then it would be true. So that's, yeah. So here's the way he would describe it. Is this true? Then it is false and therefore true. Is it false? It is therefore true and consequently false. Again, there is no real truth value here. The sentence cannot be identified as either true or false. It is therefore it is therefore not a statement, at least not the kind of statement that we can legitimately use in logic. One caution: ridiculously false statements such as, the queen is a man, or dogs grow 2 heads when tickled, are not nonsense. They have truth value. The truth value of both of those sentences would be false. So they are actually sentences, are actually statements. Okay, so just the summary, a statement is a sentence that is either true or false. Other kinds of sentences that have no truth value, such as questions, commands, and nonsense, are not statements. Okay? So we're going to be dealing with statements in this course, so we want to be clear on this. So let's go through a few exercises here. On exercise 6, examine the following sentences and determine whether or not they are statements. In the space provided, write down true statement, false statement, question, command, or nonsense. Okay, so Jesus healed blind men. What kind of a statement would that be? That's a true statement. Okay, King David was the first king of Israel. False statement. Very good. The tongues of flame at Pentecost were water. False statement. Right? Anybody argue with that? Raise your hand if you have questions, okay? Who wrote the book of Hebrews?
That's a question.
Okay, is a question a statement? No statement at all. Okay, children, obey your parents. Command, not a statement. The Bible is the Word of God. True statement. The Great Pyramid is 6 feet high. False statement. Who said slaves should obey their masters? Question. How old was Jesus when he was baptized? Question. The slithy toes did gyre and gimble. Yeah, that's right. Lewis Carroll. He wrote that. It's true, he wrote that. So it's a true statement, right? Yeah. That's good that you at least know where that came from. Yeah. Believe the good news. Command. Yeah. Imperative. Okay, the United States has 50 states. It's 52 according to Obama, right? Yeah, confusion. True statement. Okay. Write a nonsense statement that uses correct grammar. Somebody want to give us an example? Did any of you do this on your own? Come up with something and then blurt it out. What's that? You all give me nonsense statements all the time. And now all of a sudden you can't come up with one? That's a false statement. All right, here's the example that he gives. The flip will squirt a cruise yesterday in the bright despair. So you have a subject and you have a predicate, but yeah. Okay, you get it. All right, next section. We're dealing with self-supporting statements. Okay, on page 61. Once we have determined that a sentence is a statement, a further distinction can be made between self-supporting statements and supported statements. This distinction depends upon the means by which the truth value of a statement is determined. We will begin with self-supporting statements, which are statements that have immediately apparent truth values. We do not need to consider information outside the statements to determine their truth values. Self-supporting statements can be divided into 3 categories. The first would be a self-report. A self-report is a statement by a person concerning his or her own desires, beliefs, or feelings. We usually do the charitable thing and take such a statement as true. For example, I believe that Jesus is the Son of God. Okay, now I'm going to pause here for a moment because the word usually in that last sentence before the example, we usually do the charitable thing and take such a statement as true. Now, why does he put it that way? Why doesn't he just say it's absolutely true? If somebody says, I believe this, we just grant them that is true.
It's still their feeling or opinion, right?
It is their opinion, to be sure.
Well, they're just being polite, and you have to decide, is this going to be true or false? The first position would be, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to contradict that person's statement, but maybe their actions will contradict it.
Very good. Their actions often contradict their statements. So this is going to come up in the sermon. So I'm thinking we might as well deal with it here. There is a reality of what we call self-deception, right? If somebody says, I believe Jesus is the Son of God, and then goes and worships idols and believes that Allah is God and Muhammad is his prophet, and goes out and murders his neighbor, is that somebody who really does believe Jesus is God? Yeah. We have to have categories of belief. So when he says, I believe Jesus is the Son of God, what is that, a demonic belief or saving faith, right? When we think, I believe in God, he's saying I have saving faith in Jesus as the Son of God. That's my trust, right? That might be one way of reading that. Or, I believe like the demons, that's undeniable. I believe the fact, but I'm not living in consistency with those facts. I live a life contrary to those facts of my own stated belief. So there is a possibility for self-deception in the Christian world, in the world we live in, the reality of it. So I just thought, I'd lay this out, somebody who tells you, oh, I believe this is just a chance world. There is no order, there's no superattending providence, that this is just a random chance world and everything is chance, they say, right? But they get up in the morning and they put their feet squarely on the floor. And you say, well, you don't live like you're in a chance world. You every morning you put your feet in the same direction as if somehow gravity works the same today as it did yesterday, right? You don't drive your car into a truck thinking maybe it's immaterial today. It might be material yesterday, might have been material yesterday, but now it's possible that it isn't material today. Or when you eat your strawberries, I use this argument against somebody who was arguing this point that it's chance world. When you eat your strawberries, you don't eat them like they're poisonous. You don't have a fear that you eat that might have turned into poison in the middle of the night. So you don't live as if this really is a chance world. So you can say you believe that, but your life betrays that. So we're going to do the charitable thing. When somebody says something, they give us a testimony of their belief. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt when we're dialoguing. We may have to do some further work to expose that. But that's why he says we usually do the charitable thing and take such statements as true. Or when somebody's telling a lie, right? They can say, oh, no, I saw Mrs. Kiter take that gun and shoot that dog right in the head, right? You say,
False statement.
False statement. Yeah, that's a lie. You may say you believe that, but I know better, right? Yeah, okay. The statement refers to the belief of the speaker. It does not primarily refer to whether Jesus is in fact the Son of God. In other words, the statement could be taken as true even if Christianity were false. An atheist can acknowledge that it is true that the speaker believes that Jesus is the Son of God. Right? So that's just his self-report. Is that clear? Okay, number 2, statements that are true or false by logical structure. This is a statement that can be seen to be true or false by how the sentence is put together. For example, Jesus is the Son of God, or he is not the Son of God. This statement is necessarily true. It cannot be false because it covers all the possibilities. A statement which is true by logical structure is called a tautology. I'm going to pause there for a moment. There are 2 definitions to the word tautology. How do we normally use the word tautology? Tutor. As in Mary? A tautology is something where you have the same information as in the predicate as in the subject. It's to say the same things 2 different ways. If I were to say all triangles are 3-sided polygons, there's nothing in the predicate that isn't in the word triangle, right? A bachelor is a single man, an unmarried man. That's how we often use tautology. But in logic, tautology is going to have a slightly different sense. It's just something that is true by its logical structure. The sentence is going to exhaust all possibilities, so we know it is true because the truth is either in the predicate or the subject. Either in the subject or the predicate, but it's there, right? If Jesus is the Son of God, he cannot not be the Son of God, right? That would be an impossibility. And if he's not the Son of God, then he can't be the Son of God. And those are the only 2 possibilities. He either is God or he is not. There's no third option. You can't say he's half God. Right, okay. All right. So other statements are necessarily false. For example, Jesus is the Son of God and he is not the Son of God. Is it possible that A can be A and non-A? Right? We have that structure there, right? So this is an example of a self-contradiction, a statement that is false by logical structure. So when you think of tautology, think just the opposite of a self-contradiction. It would be a self-affirming statement as opposed to a self-contradicting statement. Clear? Okay, then the third, statements that are true or false by definition. Some statements are necessarily true or false because of the definitions of the words in the sentence. For example, all triangles are 3-sided figures. What is that? That's a tautology. I just gave that as a definition, didn't I? I thought the exam. Okay. This is necessarily true. It is true by definition. The following example is a statement that is false by definition. A triangle is an octagon. According to the definitions of triangle and octagon, the statement is necessarily false. An octagon is a 8-sided polygon, and a triangle is a 3-sided polygon. So
is that a contradiction?
That's self-contradictory, right?
So does the structure make it a tautology, or does
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's not self-contradiction. It is false by definition. It doesn't. It's false as self-contradiction would be that Jesus is the Son of God and he is not the Son of God, where those 2 are going to compete directly.
So you have to say, this is the triangle and it is not.
Right. That would.
This
Yeah.
is a triangle and it's an octagon.
Yeah.
Did you say it?
It would be false by definition on the second one, right? It is a triangle and it is not an octagon. So,
I said this is a triangle and it is an octagon.
yeah, so that would be this is a triangle and it is, no, because you could have a statement like this on that form if you substitute terms. This is a square and it is a geometric shape. It would be true. You have two different things going on there. So the triangle and the octagon would have to be tested as to what the meanings of those words were. So in that case, it is a triangle and an octagon would be a false statement, right? Yeah. So anyhow.
My question was, is a tautology determined by the structure or the content?
The structure.
So the one that we just had that says the triangle is an octagon, that's a tautology. Because it's the structure, is the subject, and the predicate are the same thing. But since they're not, that's a false tautology or if it's the structure, it's got the structure. Tautology, but
Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding your question.
is it how the sentence says what it says, or is it what the sentence says that makes it a
No, let me back up. Then, yeah, I want to retract my answer. I think I get now where you're coming from, so my apologies for the confusion. No, it would be in terms of the content, right? Because,
It's not a tautology because the content is false.
It's gotta be true.
correct. It's by its structure. Yeah, by logical structure is what a tautology is, right? Yeah.
So within the structure, both halves have to be true. Both halves have to be equivalent. Right, but if the second part doesn't equal the first part, even though it's written that it does, it's not a tautology.
Yeah, I mean, the example that he gives, but I'm trying to think of, is there a way that you could say something that uses a different phrasing that it's true? Yeah, because I think you would have to have maybe both the content and the structure, because originally I wanted to say the structure is there because it's going to exhaust all the possibilities. So you have to have the same sort of predicated idea that you're dealing with. The difference is the negative and the positive, that he is not and he is exhausts all possibilities in terms of the structure. So I'm trying to think of an example where you could exhaust all possibilities or get the truth in terms of content that differs. So, yeah, I think for the time being, I think it would probably have to include both. Would have to be there.
Well, you have to have the structure.
Yeah.
The structure.
Yeah, but having just the structure wouldn't lead to it is always a tautology if that is like that particular structure. It's a either or, that it's always a tautology. But if you had the same exact content and it's exhausting all possibilities by the negative and the positive, you have an A and a non-A, then it would be a tautology. So I think it all has to come together to get that specific kind of a statement.
So if you said a tautology is a true statement,
True biological structure. by its structure. You can tell. You can determine it to be true in and of itself, but you could also have the same kind of positive and a negative in a statement that follows the same form, but if the predication is slightly different, like all dogs are animals and all dogs are mammals, let's say, or something like that, you'd have the same sort of structure to the sentence, but it wouldn't be a tautology. So the content as well as the structure would have to be there. So I was a little hasty on that. Okay, good wrestle, though. Okay, let's go through some exercises then on page 63. List below 5 examples of a phrase that would introduce a self-report, such as, "It is my opinion that." How do other people just give their opinion? Say it out loud so I can hear you. Well, but you're given a self-report. You're assuming in that I believe cats are better than dogs, right? It's unstated, but it is a self-report. Yeah.
Statements like "in my experience" or
Yeah.
"I believe that" or
Mhm.
"I heard."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
Something
my
like
opinion.
It kind of starts with "I" and imports your own personal perspective.
That's right, yeah. Okay, and those aren't always stated as Payton's example was. And we're going to eventually, when we hear certain statements, we're going to have to substitute that in order to get sort of this mathematical English evaluation. Does this actually give you an output that is true or false? Okay, list below 5 statements of your own that are true or false by logical structure. Include at least one tautology and one self-contradiction. So maybe let's do, somebody give me a statement that's true by logical structure. Okay, is that a tautology as well? That is a tautology as well. Okay, how about one that's false by logical structure? Are zero-sided polygons? Okay, so false.
Eli said that, like, they're not polygons.
Yeah. So it is false. Logical structures, circles, all circles are zero-sided polygons. Couldn't have a zero-sided polygon, which would be false. Okay, how about a self-contradiction? That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm the government. I'm the government, and I'm here to help. Yeah. Okay. How about 5 statements that are true or false by definition, and include at least one true statement and one false statement? True by definition.
Can we go back really quick?
Sure.
All of those self-contradictions, none of those are actual examples of a true self-contradiction, right?
All of what example?
Well, I've never lied. That's not, by logical structure, that's not a self-contradiction.
I have never lied.
By logical structure.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it is a false statement by experience. We'll find here in just a minute. So, but by logical structure, we want to, get the logical structure.
Is it like the logical structure of a self-contradiction
Yeah.
would be like God is real and God is not real.
Right.
That would be a
Yeah.
self-contradiction by logical statement.
Right.
Because it couldn't uphold itself
Yeah.
as a statement floating in the air.
Yeah.
But I have never lied. Well, yeah,
Yeah, and then you'd have to add, and I have always lied, right? Now it's self-contradiction, correct?
Did you say that sometimes I lie?
I guess that would be a self-confidence.
Yeah,
I've never lied.
yeah, because it is a violation of never. That some is a violation of never. We'll get to a square of opposition where you'll be able to see that clearly. Yeah. Okay, yeah, good qualification. I had things coming in. Okay. All right, let's do lesson 8, supported statements, and that's gonna get us through where we need to for the next quiz or test, and it's very short, so I think we can cover this. Okay, the other kind of statement is called a supported statement. A supported statement does not stand or fall by itself. It requires evidence from outside investigation before it can be declared true or false. Below are 3 examples of supported statements. Solomon had a treaty with Hiram. We'd have to do some investigation to find out how that is. It is raining outside. If we're inside, we wouldn't be able to determine that without doing some investigation. The leaning tower will fall down. These are obviously statements. They are not questions or commands, and they can be said to be either true or false. But in order to determine the truth value of any of these statements, it is necessary to go outside the statements. We must gather some information before declaring them to be either true or false. One source of this information is authority. How do we know if Solomon had a treaty with Hiram? Because we cannot travel back in time, we would have to look to some trustworthy, authoritative source, such as the scriptures. Many of the truths we learn in school are supported by authority. Can you think of others? Yeah, textbooks are an authority. One more time? Teachers, yeah. Mm-hmm. Or maybe your teacher is telling you in astronomy the nature of Jupiter, what the components of it are, what its density is, gravity, all of that.
Even textbooks and teachers can either be true or false.
Yeah, that's true. So the authority is in degree of reliable authorities, right? If you went to a kid flipping burgers at McDonald's and asked him to explain brain surgery to you, likelihood of getting competent answers is not going to be high, is it? But if you went to a brain surgeon, then maybe you could trust that authority. So there will be quality of authority. But we learn things in school about science, medicine, mathematics, and so forth, and we take it on the authority of others too. The government is not an authority, they're servants, remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
John and I are really married.
Because God says you are. I wasn't there, I didn't witness it. Yeah, yeah. You have to go back. Documents. How do we know that? But how do we know that that form is actually a true form? True license, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, a second source of information is experience or observation. Consider the statement, "It is raining outside." Is that statement true or false? The way to find out is to look outside in order to increase your experience. When we determine the truth value of statements by experience, we are trusting not an outside source, but our own senses: sight, touch, taste, smell, or hearing. So that's going to be the difference between authority and experience, will be that we're the one making the observation, right? The determination. And then the third way to determine truth value of a supported statement is by deduction. in which we reason to some conclusion based on other statements. How do we know that the Leaning Tower will fall down? We might reason this way. All man-made structures will eventually fall down. The Leaning Tower is a man-made structure, so the Leaning Tower will fall down. All the different types of statements we have studied so far can be thus organized into the following chart. You have statement as the most general. There are two types of statements, self-supporting and supported. Underneath self-supporting statements, we have three ways that self-supporting statements can be determined. There you have a self-report, you have a logical structure, and by definition. And then under the logical structure, it's either going to be a tautology, a true statement by its logical structure, and a self-contradiction is going to be a false statement by its logical structure. And then under supported statements, backing up to the second line there, under supported statements, they're supported by authority, where we're going to an authority outside of ourselves, by experience, our own need to, our own senses validating, or by deduction. Okay, so in the time remaining, let's work through the end of this unit, and it'll be a logical place to end, and we'll come back and finish up some statements. Okay. Examine each of the following statements. In the blank to the right, enter the type of statement you believe it to be. Your options are self-report, tautology, self-contradiction, true by definition, false by definition, and supported. If the answer is supported, give the method used to support it. Okay, so the snow is deep. A self-report, I believe the snow is deep.
My argument is that deep is subjective, therefore it has to be a self-report.
Yeah. There you go. I think it could be a self-report, to be sure. You're assuming that I believe. But the statement, the snow is deep, without that, let's just take the statement in and of itself. It would have to be a supported statement, right? Because we'd have to evaluate, is it actually deep or not? And then, deep is ambiguous, right? Is it ambiguous or? But now, how would that be determined? Is that on authority? By experience, probably in this case, right? We'd just go out and see, is the snow deep? Okay, I think Socrates was a wise man. Self-report, very good. Okay, Paul was an apostle and he wasn't. Self-contradiction, very good. Jericho fell to the invading Israelites. It would be supported, and in this case it would be authority that would be outside of us. The Bible would be where we would go to find that out. Okay, I believe Paris really loved Helen. Self-report. Okay, a square has 5 sides. False by definition, good. The book of Genesis has 50 chapters. Well, we're not saying true or false, but it would be, is it a self-report? Supported by experience. Yeah, that's right. Okay, Jesus is, what's that?
Could you say is it the Bible, the authority?
God didn't put the chapters in it, so I'm just kidding. It's something you could go and find it out yourself, right? You wouldn't have to go outside yourself to prove that. You could pick up a Bible and look at it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, the Bible's the authority. Because that's where you're finding out.
But the Bible doesn't talk.
Whether it's 50 chapters.
Yeah. Or if your teacher told you that, then it would be on authority, right? Okay, we'll give you a pass. It could be authority or experience, but this case certainly could be. Okay, we'll let that one slide. Okay, Jesus is God or he is not God.
Self-contradiction.
No, that wouldn't be a self. Yeah, just the opposite of a self-contradiction. It would be a tautology, because it's true. If Jesus is God is true, then he is not God would be false. So it's either or. And if Jesus is God is a false statement, then he must not be God, because you have all the possibilities exhausted there. Now, 9, Jesus is God and he is man. Very good. It's not a self-contradiction, is it? Because you would need the predicate, he is God. If it was Jesus is God and he is, Jesus is God and he is not God, that would be a contradiction, self-contradiction. In this case, you have two different predicates, or two different nouns involved in that statement, I guess is how we would want to put it. So it's supported, and how would we evaluate that? Experience or authority? Authority. Yeah.
See, the Bible's the authority.
No. Well, but that's dealing with the content. See, the 50 chapters isn't the content, right?
It says 50 in mine.
Yeah. Okay. 10. I think the snow is deeper than last year. That's a self-report. Jeremiah was a reluctant prophet. Supported by authority, right? My mother is a woman. True by definition, very good. It either works or it doesn't. Tautology, very good. Dante was a poet. Supported by experience or authority? Probably authority. I suppose you could go and look at all the poetry books and find Dante there and evaluate yourself. But okay, New Testament was written in Greek. Supported by authority. Okay, 1 minute.
And so number 3, Paul was an apostle and he was. Yes, but at the same time, at one point he wasn't. At one point he was, right?
Okay, but
So, I mean, there's
yeah.
not enough words there for that. But some of these
Yeah, I get your point.
it was Saul. That's another true statement.
Yeah. You are assuming in this in the same relationship, in the same way and in the same relationship would have to be there. So it's true you can smuggle stuff in and other qualifiers, but the statement as it is standing, we would take apostle in the same manner, the same relationship, same time, context, everything assumed would be the same across the borders. Otherwise, you start equivocating on things, and there's going to be a problem with that equivocation. It ends up getting ambiguity into the argument. We're going to try to minimize that. So for the sake of where we're at, we're going to assume that carries across in the same way and in the same relation. Go ahead. Finish your. What's that?
Wasn't it foreordained before the world began?
That who is an apostle?
I was just going to say, that's why theologians write long sentences and long books.
That's right. Get all those clarifications. Yeah. Okay. I was wondering if maybe we could get to the. Yep. Correct.
So you have two different terms.
Right. Yeah, you're saying he was an apostle, right? And then if you're going to say, and he wasn't, refers to something where when he wasn't an apostle, now you have the opposite, right? When he was just a man or before his conversion. So you have to, you're taking your subject there and putting it into the second part of that statement.
Say like Donald Trump was president and he was not, because at one point he wasn't. So then it just gets confusing.
Yeah,
And then if you go outside the time frame of the statement.
yeah, so, okay, yeah. If you say there was a time when Trump was a president and there was a time when he was not, that's a true statement, right? In this case, we're saying Paul was an apostle. That is true. And it is also true that he was not an apostle. Now that you would say, no, he was an apostle, and therefore the second one wasn't. So there's an apostle is not expressed in the second part of that, but that's what carries over. And so you don't want to shift the meaning or the context of that in that second one. That's assumed. It's got to come straight over. So I remember that's what I got into a long debate with my brother talking about something there. My dad and I were saying opposite things, and I was arguing, well, we can't both have truth. One of us is right and one of us is wrong. And my brother couldn't understand that because we were talking about something that neither one of us had validated out in the real world or in the eternal, right? So because we can't go in and validate that ourselves as to who's right and who's wrong, he was saying, therefore, you're both right. And I said, we can't both be right. And it's because the beginning of the argument was right means that which comports with reality. And then he's using, in the conclusion, right to mean neither one of you know who's right.